Hi, so it's Desmond here from Rhino, and today I wanted to talk to you about pitching. You know, I see all the time people putting out messages, whether that be individually or as a company, more times as a business, and different ways in which and how we can market and position ourselves in our respective businesses. And I often hear people say that, you know, you can do this, you can do that, in terms of how you can actually develop and evolve your business. But I don't often hear them talking about pitching in terms of how do you pitch and why that's important. In fact, often I hear marketing gurus never even mention the word, as if you don't have to pitch, as if you don't have to write a pitch, as if you don't have to have some kind of pitch running through your business. So I wanted to talk about that and why it's really important. And if you're either starting a business or you're in a business, and if you don't have a solid pitch, that's something you remember, that's something you can say and deliver at a short notice or any notice, then it's something you need to consider. It's something that I learned a number of years ago, and it's kind of held me in good stead for many things I do, and it's something that I'm always sort of thinking about. So if we sort of break down, if we think of like what is a pitch, or why, if we talk about why you should have a strong pitch, the reason for a pitch is so you're able to articulate yourself and express and be able to explain to someone what it is you do with clarity. But at the same time, you need to, within the pitch, you almost command their respect, and you demonstrate you have an authority in your field or in your area of where you work, and also that they will actually listen to what you've got to say, and that's why it's really important that when you are trying to tell someone your pitch, or you're trying to deliver a pitch, whether that's written or verbal, that people will listen. So I'll give you a quick example. So someone connects with me on LinkedIn, and I think, okay, cool, they're a designer, they're a service provider, it doesn't matter what they are, but in my head I think, okay, cool, I don't mind connecting with you, you're someone that I might engage with in the future, also it's good to have connections. And you know, so often I say no to lots of people, and certain people I say yes to, and I always sort of know sometimes when I say yes to certain people that I know what's going to happen. They're going to pitch to me. They're going to immediately, by me saying yes, they're going to now send me a private message and basically pitch their business, whatever that is, and their service for me to buy it. Now, not only is that a mistake in my opinion, but what I always find fascinating is that they can't deliver a pitch. Their pitch is awful. Their written pitch, I mean, bearing in mind they've had a chance to prepare, and their written pitch where they're pitching their product or their service is poor, and I will read them just because I'm interested in pitching, and I often read them and after about 5-10 seconds delete. Sometimes I unconnect, other times I take the time to give them some feedback, other times I just think I stop listening. Now in my head the problem is that because the person's got such a bad pitch, I've not only have I lost respect for them, I remember them. I don't remember their name, but because it's unrememberable, I forget who they are. Now the difference is that when someone has a good pitch and you read it, you engage, and even if it's a bit long, you'll go through to the end because it's interesting. So it's really important that people have a pitch, because I won't, if there's 10 lines, 20 lines, 30 lines, I get to like line 3 or 4, and if their pitch is starting off with this bad order of what they're saying, or it's not very intriguing, or I just feel like they haven't given enough consideration to their pitch, within 5 seconds I've moved on. I'm not reading it. It doesn't matter how I could need that service desperately, but I have moved on and I've forgotten about who they are. So it's important that you're able to articulate yourself when you put a pitch together, because people won't listen to you, and ultimately if you're pitching your business, you want people to listen, and if they don't listen, you definitely won't get the engagement, and you won't get an opportunity to actually sell them what you're trying to sell. So that's important. The other thing is about people remembering you. You are not remembered when your pitch is bad. However, the good news is that when your pitch is good, you are remembered. I remember people from 5 years ago if their pitch is good. That's how much you remember them. So you can go into a room, whether that be in a corporate environment, a boardroom, whether that be in the pub with your pal, and someone says, what do you do? And you go, oh, well, actually, you know, I work for this block management company, we look after blocks of flats, and we deal with all the maintenance service providers, etc., etc. But people won't remember you. But when your pitch is good, people remember who you are, to the point that they're like, okay, if I know someone, I'm going to refer them to you, you're the go-to guy, and you leave an impression. And the point of the pitch isn't just, people get confused with that when they pitch their business or their service or their product, people have this idea about that they must get the outcome, and the outcome being that you get a contract or you get someone to buy. That if you go into every pitch thinking that that's the outcome, or that's the only outcome, shall we say, then that's a mistake. Because pitching isn't about, of course, the ultimate outcome. If we said, what is the gold medal scenario of pitching to that person or in whatever environment you're in, right at that moment, the gold medal scenario is to get the business. Of course, it is get someone to buy, it is to get someone to sign the contract, it is someone to, that is the point, of course. However, that's the gold medal. There is a silver medal and there is a bronze. Now, the silver medal sometimes isn't you getting the business, right? But it could be that you get such good feedback from the person that you're able to tweak your pitch again and deliver it better the next time. Or it could be that you're not right for that company or that person, but they're going to recommend you to someone else because you've had such a good impression on them. So getting the immediate business or the contract from that from whoever you're pitched to obviously is the gold medal, but it's not the only thing you can get out of it. And people are hell-bent on thinking that they must get this outcome or they must get this the business from that pitch, and if they don't, it's a failure. It's not. You have to go into pitching thinking that there's many scenarios that with a gold medal of the business, but there's other benefits to leaving an impression on that person that you might, you know, sow and seed, you might reap it in a year's time, in 2 years' time, and so on. Like, you know, another example, you know, I've pitched to people before and they said, look, we don't think you're quite ready for where we are and the fit's not quite there, but I can see in a year or two's time it will be, and I'm going to give you a call in a year's time and I want to see where you're up to, where you're at. Now, that's exact, you know, that's like, yeah, we didn't get the business at that time, but you've left an impression on them that they still are interested in doing business with you later on. And business isn't so as simple as it's now. Often these things are for the future. So whilst you might get some business now, you get some business later, but it's ultimately, if you leave the right impression on someone, it matters. As well as that, when you're pitching to people, you've got to remember you want to stand out from the crowd. You know, if someone gets 10 pitches or 3 pitches or 5 pitches, you want to be different. You want them to think, oh, hang on, this guy's over here, these other 4 are over there, and you're not even being compared now to these other guys or these other businesses because you're stood out on its own. You had a different perspective in how you put it together. You had a different positioning. You delivered it differently. They have a completely different trail of thought in how they need to consider you, and ultimately that's what you want. You want to stand out. So a pitch is designed for you to be remembered and for you to stand out, and that's what you want. And trust me, if you put the pitch together in the right way, it's very achievable for you to stand out from the others. The next thing really is, I suppose, is how do you actually write a pitch? You know, now I speak to business owners all the time, and lots of people don't have the architecture in terms of how to put a pitch together. And again, they haven't spent enough time on a pitch for them to realise that actually there's a bit of a formula, or I wouldn't call it a formula, but there's certainly, an architecture to writing a pitch. Now there's several, there's probably more than several, but you have to have one. Whatever yours is. Now, luckily enough, a few years ago, I was able to spend time with a guy called Mike Harris on a program that I did called Key Person of Influence, and in that we learned how to pitch. And Mike Harris' pitch was, I've been a CEO of £3 billion companies, because he was the CEO of Egg Bank, First Direct, and telecommunication company 1-to-1. And they were all £1 billion companies, and this guy was a master of pitching, and luckily for me, I got to learn how to pitch from this guy, and you know, that's why it's always important to keep learning. But he was able to teach us he gave us the pitch architecture for whether we were doing a 30-second pitch, a 4-minute pitch, or an hour's pitch, and the architecture was the same, but depending on the time that you had to deliver it would be in how much you maybe elaborated on each area. However, so it's important that you have this architecture and you follow. And again, it depends on the audience. So typically someone will say, you're sitting at a wedding around a table, you don't know who they are, who's sitting next to you, and they say, oh, hi, I'm Desmond, you introduce yourself, and you say, oh, what do you do? It's the most common question. Now at a wedding, you're not pitching your business, you're not going to deliver a 5-minute pitch to this person because you'll bore his arse off after 30 seconds. However, it's an opportunity for you to actually pitch in a different environment, in a more social setting. When I say, well, actually, hey, my name's Desmond, I run a block management company in East London. And then you might return the question, hey, so, what's your name and what do you do? And they go, well, actually, I'm a teacher and I work in this school, etc., etc. And go on. Often it'll be like, well, how did you get into that? And all of a sudden, you're going into the different areas of your pitch, and you're just having a conversation. So there's different ways you can deliver your pitch, whether that be at a wedding or in a social environment down the pub. But certainly having that architecture makes it clear in your head in terms of how you deliver it. The architecture that I learned was about having clarity, like who you are and what do you do, and being able to say that in almost 2 sentences. And if you believe it or not, people get that wrong right at the beginning. I often, when I ask people what do they do, I'm like, what? They'll give me some kind of job title and I'm like, I have no idea what that means, what that is, what industry you work in. I don't have any picture in my head of what your job is, what you do. And because you can't explain it to me in 2 sentences and give me that clarity, I almost don't want to listen to what else it is you got to do. And it's a little bit, I find it boring, I disengage. So having clarity right up front is important, because I'm gonna want to know what you've got to say next. Now the next thing is credibility. So how long have you been doing it? Are you qualified? And credibility could be through qualification or through experience, but you have to be able to demonstrate credibility in whatever it is you're doing. Again, or I won't listen. So point number 1, clarity, who you are and what you do. Point number 2, credibility, and you've got to be credible. Again, if you're not credible, so I'll give you an example. Some people say, oh, this is what I do. I help businesses. I'm going to go on a rant about people helping businesses grow their company, and it's to no one I know, or it's not intended to offend anyone. It's just because I get inundated all the time, and the only reason I don't want to talk about it. But companies that go, we can help grow your business, and when you look at their credibility, they don't actually have any. Like, what's their case studies? Who have they helped? And you start peeling between the layers, and they haven't helped anyone grow their business, really. They haven't done it even for their own business. So that, for me, is not credible. So you can't pitch something that you're not credible for, in my opinion, because I will get to your credibility piece in your pitch straight away. And the second I think you're not credible, that's it, you've lost me. So it's important you are credible, and it's important you get that up front. After I know what you do, you're credible, great. Now I will listen to you. You've got my attention. I know what you do. I know who you are, and you're credible. I'm listening. But believe it or not, if you don't get to that, I'm not listening. You've lost me. So that's really important. And then I suppose the other area is looking at how do you actually embed your pitch into your business. So if you think of a pitch being verbal, where you might go to an interview, or you might go to deliver a presentation to a potential or prospective client, and that's a pitch that you'd be pitching fundamentally. Now, if you think of that scenario, which is quite corporate, quite formal, you've also got, and that's verbal, obviously, you've also got to think of non-verbal pitching, so in terms of written pitching. So it could be emails, it could be writing copy in tender documentation, it could also be in your brochures, your sales brochures, it could be your website. And really, whatever your pitch is, you've got to think about how does that transcend across all of these different mediums, all these different platforms. And you need to make sure that there's this consistency in your pitch that crosses over. So it's not just when you rock up to the potential client meeting, or and you're delivering it verbally, but also it comes out in your other materials and your other platforms, and it has to be echoed. And it can't be different. If I open your sales brochure and it's completely different to the pitch you might deliver to me, that there is a disconnect. So that's quite important. The other thing is that thing that gets overlooked and you need to consider when you're thinking of a pitch and you have a pitch is that your staff are aware of what the pitch is for your business. It's massively underestimated, the power of teaching the staff and making them aware of what is the pitch, and it comes down to staff training really, but it's important that the staff are aware of what the pitch is so they can actually articulate and express what does the business do, what are we about, what are we trying to do, and they're able to do that with confidence in a way that reflects the business in the way you want it to. So it's not a case of, if you speak to this person or this member of staff, this is the pitch. You speak to another member of staff, they're going to give you something completely different. It might not be word perfect, but it should follow the same form, the same process, and it should have, and it should be echoed from one staff member to another. There should be some consistency. So it's important that the staff are trained. And then ultimately, you have to think about practicing it. Practice really makes perfect. And the best way that I was taught to practice your pitch was in the market. And Mike Harris often said, you sharpen your pitch in the marketplace. And what he meant was that every time you deliver it, whether that be at a networking event, someone says, hey, what do you do? And you've got 2 minutes with them, that's actually an opportunity to pitch. Now, you're not trying to sell to them, but it's an opportunity for you to give some clarity about who you are and what you do. Be credible so they'll want to listen to you. Tell them it is what the problems or the solutions and the solutions you have and what's the really big picture you've got. Now, people, again, will remember you, but it's important that you can ask for feedback in those environments, and you can get feedback in those environments. And also, if you go for a tender process and you don't win and you say, well, actually, can I have some feedback? And they might say, well, actually, we were a bit unclear on your solution. It didn't quite make sense, some of one of the problems you were describing, and we weren't quite sure how you would solve it, and we're a bit unsure about the experience of the team. Now, if that was your feedback, you would go, right, okay, so they weren't sure about my experience with my team, which I need to work on, which is my credibility piece. They weren't so sure on one of my solutions to one of the problems I explained, which means I need to make that clearer. And I can actually tweak my pitch following that feedback. So sharpening your pitch in the marketplace is a great way of just tweaking your pitch to the point it gets better, it gets better, it gets better, and it should get better over time. And the pitch does evolve, it's not static, it will change, but you ultimately want feedback and you ultimately want to make it better. The better it gets, the better you get at delivering it, definitely gets you better outcomes, 100%. There's no doubt about it. You get better outcomes the better you are at it. So just to summarize, is that we've got to practice. You've got to put your pitch together: clarity, credibility, problem solutions, what's the big picture. That's pretty much the architecture for your pitch. You've got to practice it. You've got to practice it in the market, not just in front of the mirror. That's where you sharpen up that's where you sharpen it up to get noticed. You've got to make your staff aware of the pitch and make sure they understand it and they can deliver it themselves. And you've got to make sure that pitch is reflected across all mediums: website, copy, market materials, etc., etc. So cool. So that's it on pitching. It's a bit of a quick one. You could, I learned about pitching over 2 days for 20 hours and probably spent a few hundred hours practicing it and trying to master the pitch or put my pitch into an order that I felt was good, that I could deliver to potential clients. So it's not something in 20 minutes you're just going to be able to learn how to do, but it's something to be aware of, and hopefully you found it useful. So cool. So if you found it was useful, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Episodes will be coming out once a week, hopefully with some more useful tips. Thanks for listening.